Alright, now for the tricky one. So, now we're going to talk about a film that is really not what it was meant to be in the end. And of course, this is Nuclear Revolver. So Nuclear Revolver was... Welcome to... probably should have said welcome. Hi, I'm Julian. This is with the director. I'm talking about Nuclear Revolver, the propaganda cut, a film I did back in 2016? 2016, that's the one. I remember that. Year 12 for me. So it was my year 12 end of the year final film. Goes for 9 minutes and 20 seconds. The script is about 15-20 pages long. It was a bit too much of a monolith, so I was going off the back of having done Are We Alive and Don't Starve. Immediately when I finished doing Don't Starve, people were like, oh, you're doing a Don't Starve 2 or Don't Starve together? And, because at the end of, for the orientation for year 12, you had to present an idea for your films if you had any ideas, and so I had my idea for Nuclear Revolver already ready. And it was already overly complicated to explain. And it's like, simply put, it's a commentary on nuclear annihilation and that whole thing. It was inspired by Fallout, the game, but of course it's not actually Fallout. Yeah, and so this was based on like a mix of looking at history of film and television and all this bunch of stuff. I'd just done a whole semester for history on this stuff to do with the post World War II part of pretty much the world and the Cold War. It was very Cold War inspired, obviously, and so that was really inspiring me to do it. And so when I went up there to say I'm doing Nuclear Revolver, which is a mixture of nuclear and Revolver was from actually the Beatles song. Which song Revolver? Doesn't really matter, but still, Nuclear Revolver, bang, 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 done. Yeah, title, cool. Yeah, and my friend John was like, oh, are you doing Don't Starve 2? And I'm like, no, because after having that same year, Sam had done his sequel, The Hunt for Slender Man, and it was such a travesty in the making, I know, because I was making it with him, that the only good thing that ever came out of that film was the blooper reel. I mean, the script was awful, yes, a criticism against Sam, because I've looked at the script and it wasn't script, it was just a bunch of small lines saying, this is just a bit of a summary of what kind of happens. It wasn't much. And so I'd come up with Nuclear Revolver, the idea was already way too complicated, and I planned out the whole entire film. I wrote it all. This is when I'd done professional formatting as well, learned how to do that. And so you start off with this narrator character. So of course this is in the universe where this Teller, voiced by myself, who was the narrator for Are We Alive, exists. This intergalactic kind of documentarian character, which kind of was also the inspiration for the name of Teller Creations for the channel. And it's a character that I don't know if I'll ever get back to doing or anything, but I planned a whole bunch of, say, films and TV shows and whatever, with the character involved in some kind of way. Like, some kind of Nick Fury attaching everyone to this cinematic universe. Anyway, so yeah, it's all about him making a film. The propaganda cut is against Teller, saying Teller's the bad guy, because there's this whole thing that's mentioned in Are We Alive, that Teller's career is kind of tarnished in a way, and this is propelled in the Observer's point of view, who is also narrated by him. He's doing a community radio thing, because nobody believes him as a journalist anymore, because his reputation's been tarnished, but he knows that these people were lying, but were convincing enough to everyone else. And so he decides to do a film on a blacklisted planet called Earth. And so this is his documentary. It's set in... It's got this idea presented by the narrator that the film is set in 1950s or whatever. And you've got this whole 1950s kind of... It's actually 1950s Australia effect. So you got your scientists, played by myself and John, you had the narrator played by Jack, and who was one of the teachers at the school, which great teacher, great actor too. Who else is in this film? I don't think anyone else is. This focuses more on the idea of mostly the propaganda factor to it, so like Teller is evil and whatever, but also because like as if he's sold it off to an editing company to edit it, but they've edited it so he's the bad guy. And it's, again, the idea of the film is just about showing how the world comes to an end, and showing like this blacklisted planet, this is how it actually came to, like this is why it's blacklisted, because say like everyone's left the planet, like a lot of people have left the planet, have, you know, gone out of the galaxy and whatever, and as most science fiction writers believed that could happen, that would populate the galaxy of humans and other aliens and whatever, and so the Earth is actually annihilated by nuclear devastation. It's presented in this 1950s context because of the social context of the time, but is actually set in like the 2100s or whatever, so set way after we've all expanded into the universe, with spaceships and stuff, and this thing happens. And so the awkwardness and the odd cutting, whatever, for Jack's character and narrator.
Greetings, viewers.
The idea that's presented in film as well, with the small aspect ratio, the 4:3 aspect ratio.
What you are about to see will inform you of historic events, many of which will not make sense.
So yeah, it's presented as an idea that, like, you know, that humans have been giving this idea that's all fake and wrong, and inaccurate, and Teller is revealing it, and this is his big comeback. And it's, yeah, that's the thing. And so the script that even Jack is holding there is actually the script for the film. So he's not a bad actor, so he can't actually read the script and can't memorize the lines. I directed him to do it like that.
The film I'm about to present discusses these incidences more accurately than your teacher ever could.
Even the costume
Lights, please.
was just found at school. You know, we had a costume department. And the idea is that this whole entire film is meant to be projected as it is.
Why are you doing that again?
Sorry. It's just so bad. So, this is filmed in one of our science classrooms. Pretty goddamn obvious. Even my t-shirt is actually like the evolutionary thing, but it ends with a guy playing a saxophone because my German friends had bought it for me. The lab coats were from the school, so they were lab coats all with sciences. And this whole entire thing was reshot like a whole entire month after we'd originally shot it, because some of us talked too fast. It was just bad and bad and bad. Everything was bad about the original take. Even though we actually had a cameraman in the original take. This version, we don't. So all this stuff is me setting up a camera like this and not moving it. So of course, you know, we've got my lines of dialogue and everything, had to remember it. The script was between us because we couldn't remember the lines sometimes, so we had to do retakes, a lot of retakes. And then you got the Nuclear Revolver title card, and it's all fire and stuff. And it's titled Know the Truth. What happens next?
Follow me. Over here.
So I still find it amusing. Every part with Jack is brilliant. Because we screened this at the Cinema Nova in Lygon Street, because our school were actually able to get a booking there, which is great, because all the Year 12 films get shown at the screening usually. That was maybe the first year we did it, because I remember the year beforehand they screened it at school, but there weren't that many Year 12s doing media. This time there were a lot. And when we were watching it in the cinema, because these are like a whole bunch of 10-minute long films, everyone was laughing at Jack's parts, mostly because some of the people knew him, but also because they were intended to be funny. And then all the parts to do with me and John, nobody really gave a shit. Like I did, of course, because I'm the guy who wrote and directed it. But there was a guy like 3 or 4 seats along from us who was probably in his 50s, maybe in his 60s, and he was like, yeah, exactly, like all the stuff that I was presenting, like the whole idea of, nuclear annihilation could happen, or it's all bad and whatever. And this guy was completely on board with the idea I'm like, oh great, at least someone gives a shit about the rest of the film and the actual message of the film.
I invite you to find a comfortable seat.
I don't really think there was anything that inspired me to do the awkwardness for for Jack's character. I just wanted to present it that way. Originally, I was wanting to do the acting originally, but I wasn't too confident as an actor. I'm still not 100% confident as an actor, but I can act, I guess. Kind of have to for some videos.
Comfortable? They're very good. Good for you.
It's hilarious too when everyone's already in a cinema in seats. Yeah. I'd also watched a lot of, like, 1950s, like, kind of school class videos, like the kind of things that they'd show to you in the 60s and 70s and whatever, because, like, they were, like, film reeled videos. Like, these days, teachers just show you videos from YouTube, and they're just, like, instructional videos and stuff, but these ones are really poorly, still, like, really badly acted and stuff, and that was the inspiration for this part, for how we did this.
I now present Dinner Time.
Dinner time? Did I actually? Okay, so, dinner time. These missing reel parts were because A, never filmed it, B, death proof. The Grindhouse thing, where they missed the scene, that they don't have, not that it wasn't filmed, but because they don't have the film reel, so it's like, oh, well, we're missing the reel, oh, sorry about that, sorry for the inconvenience, just that kind of crap. And that was just fun for me. Originally, because, again, doing 2 cuts, the second cut, which was meant to be the intended cut, or whatever the hell I was going to end up calling it, was going to be this big thing. Dinner Time was a sequence where you had the 2 versions. You had these two version scenes. The first one was Dinner Time, where you had a guy and a girl, teenagers, at a picnic, black and white, nice city in the background and everything. They're having a picnic, he proposes to her, she says yes, they're happy, and that's the end. The narrator says, this is James and Jenny, they're a nice couple and everything. I even got everything narrated by Jack as well. Like, everything was narrated. Never filmed that part with the James and Jenny. The second part of that was meant to be just after he'd proposed. She says, well, we kind of have to, don't we? And then he's like, what do you mean? And it cuts out from black and white to colour, very much like that 90s film with Reese Witherspoon. Pleasantville. Pleasantville has particular colours that are presented because it's black and white, like they go into a black and white world, and then their colour starts bleeding into it. And that was how I wanted to do it. And I learned how to do it in everything. I did it for a few short film things like The Colours of the World and stuff like that. There were experiments that I'd done that I realised I could also, like, put on YouTube if I edited, like, an actual film. And so colour would bleed into the film, and you did realise that the city behind them was in complete nuclear destruction. And James and Jenny would be, James would be like, what the fuck is going on? Like, he'd be like, what the hell's going on? He'd have this appearance to himself, and Jenny would just kind of be depressed and somber and being like, this is a happy play, like, I'm happy to be with you, but we kind of have to be together because we gotta repopulate the world, that kind of idea. Back to the film. Yeah, so then you go back to the scientist parts, and they know that the world is going to shit. They've kind of stuck in the lab as if, like, everyone was in the lab, everyone ran away because the siren went off. It's like, go be with your family. It's just like, and the main guy was like, I don't have a family. My character was like, I don't really have a family. And then there's John's character who's just kind of like, actually no, it shows it, doesn't it? Yeah. So he's just in the closet. He could knock into the closet, which, if you look at that shot, there was no way he could fit in there. There were too many shelves. You 12, I think.
Yeah, I think so. You're Jeremy, right?
Yeah, I am.
What happened to him?
The worst thing imaginable.
Yeah, I wasn't a great person when it came to screenwriting, like dialogue, obviously. Also, if you look at it, I'm pulling up the rude finger. Like, I'm leaning on this finger on the ground. Didn't realise that till afterwards. also the dialogue was very quick and everything. Yeah. So there's a small shot that there are like 2 or 3 posters that are presented in the film, very, very briefly. So this film is very much made for, I can't even look at it, very much made for YouTube. And if I'm able to look at it, okay. So we've got the image here. I'll show it here. So it's the universe. So Milky Way. It's got a red hand with the letter T on it because it's being Teller, and it has Teller, the universe's mortal enemy. So he's like stabbing the universe, and it's been cut open. It's just like, what? So it's inspired by propaganda that they had against the Russians back in the day, or vice versa, or whatever. Maybe even World War II stuff about Hitler, but it was that kind of stuff. Like there was these propaganda images that would present the idea that like this guy's the bad guy. Like modern day example would be like Putin destroying America from the inside out. That kind of crap. That's what my mindset was for these images. Then you've got your oldie music and whatever playing from the speaker.
The authorities thank you for your attention.
And
This is an emergency.
even the narrator is in the actual film, because these are obviously reenactments. So it's meant to be a reenactment. I really should have edited it better to be like, this is a reenactment, like reenactment kind of thing,
Is this the broadcast you heard?
Yes, it's been on repeat ever since the incident.
You can just tell them looking down at the script, like, damn is it obvious.
Approximately 65 minutes ago, this laboratory went into meltdown.
Yeah, then of course I go into my monologue spiel. But yeah, that's the kind of stuff that this film is meant to be talking about. The split screen effect. That was a bad split screen. I should not have done it like that. But again, I was still trying to learn how to do things. And then, is this the part where...
If such a situation presents itself.
Oh, yeah. So this is where Jack just comes in as a scientist, too. It's like, kind of the comedy thing for the kids. By the way, it's such a shitty thing when it happened. Here's how you deal with it.
Please, do not run or cause a panic. This will ensure that there are no people with weak bladders passing wind.
So, the poorly written out dialogue for this particular part was actually, my dad actually helped me write it. It's more or less like, poorly weak, if you got weak bladders and they're passing wind at the same time, like they're farting and shitting and pissing themselves because they're all scared that the world's about to end. It's just this whole childish joke to it all, to a lot of the narrator's dialogue and presentation in the film. And because, of course, the idea is that, when you watch a David Attenborough documentary, which also partially inspired this, does David Attenborough go and use the camera? Sometimes, probably, maybe. But he's not the camera guy. He's not the guy who does all the editing, all the sound stuff. He's the guy who goes to... someone will write it, and he'll go to the location with the animals or whatever and talk about the animals while he's with them, or he'll just narrate over the top. And that's what Teller does. The idea is that he narrates over it. He may write it and do all the research because he kind of has this ability to look through time as if time was fibers of film. I went into this whole abundance of lore. It's all in our real life. He describes how he can look through time because he lives outside of the reality that we live in, and time for him is shown frame by frame, and he can go through each part of time and history and get an instance from the universe and do it in a documentary. And so he would narrate over it. He'd find the thing, he'd write it, he'd narrate it, he'd hire people to film it. So he wouldn't do any of the filming stuff, someone else would. So in this case, he's doing the whole amateur thing of filming it himself because he doesn't have anyone that he can film with. Like Jack is like a not great actor who he has to hire because there's no one else that will accept his pay or whatever, or his credentials or whatever crap. Yeah, so it's just evident that Jack is meant to be a bad actor in it.
Then tread lightly, or else you may tread on someone else's face.
Yeah, it's all just meant to be this kind of childish look to it all. You know, serious topic matter, childish presentation. You know, like most kids' films. Then he just walks away. Originally, he faded out. We had to reshoot that whole entire thing because originally he just kind of faded out. But then our teacher was like, maybe he should walk that way because then it's like, you know, you present him coming in this way and he walks out that way. I'm like, yeah, no, okay, cool. So of course he comes in the commentary of scientists and nuclear weapons and stuff like that. And then of course in the background of this shot here, you have another one, which that is very, very based off a real thing. It's like, where do you draw the line? So in this case, where do you draw the line against him? So it's like the universe dividing itself, and people point at the line like, this is the line. You can't cross the line, Teller, you bad guy. So again, present Teller as a bad guy. And of course, the intended cut was meant to be filmed and come out, and he was meant to be presented as the good guy, but that never happened because I never filmed it. I still have the script, and I have one scene filmed, which I'll mention later. This was fun too. This was actually really fun to find because I had all this backup footage and B-roll stuff and stock footage and whatever. So I just put in the TV and just had the narrator describing history.
Created the equilibrium strategy of mutually assured destruction.
So,
AKA
okay, mad.
MAD is a doctrine of military strategy and national.
Okay, so even though, like, looking at it now, this film is dated. Both for poor acting, but also the fact that there is stuff that I use, like this screenshot here, you know, and the drill, you know, it's from the slow-mo guys. Like, it's obviously a gag.
Undetonated but buried in nuclear war.
Rip here lies Fat Man. Fat Man was, of course, the bomb.
It is estimated to have been a misfire warhead from the Cold War era.
So literally the idea was that some people in probably America or whatever drilled down into the ground and accidentally hit a undetonated but still active nuclear bomb. It blows up. They're like, shit, it was Russia. They send it, they try to nuke us. They go to nuke Russia, hence mutually assured destruction because everyone starts fucking nuking each other. Just because of a drill.
Which I just told you.
Okay, this part I fucking love. This part, I had obviously the free bobbleheads. I'd actually put a lot of production design into this. This was the free Breaking Bad bobbleheads of Walter White, Jesse Pinkman, and Saul from Better Call Saul, like Saul Goodman. And you just have Stalin, John F. Kennedy, and Nixon stuck onto their faces, and you're just playing with them like they're dolls. Which I did write into the script. That was originally planned. Actually, everything in here was originally planned, except for some of those like visual gags for the images, like Trump Tower and whatever. So originally, if I'm not wrong, that was meant to transpose. That was meant to go straight into the next part, which was meant to be this whole showing all the nuclear parts of what we'd seen. So there was an original. The second other clip that I was meant to film was with. It was actually with my teacher. Well, one of the teachers. She was never actually my teacher, which is funny. One of our teachers, Fee. Very big in the theatre. Really good actress. Had a lot of 50s clothing and stuff. So she was the wife, and the husband was actually my brother Sam. And the idea was that he comes home to her cooking dinner, and, you know, he comes in, sits down, watches a bit of TV, and he's like, you know, when's dinner ready? Should it be here by the time I'm home? So, of course, presenting this 50s sexism. She's like, oh, it's ready, honey. He goes into the kitchen. It's still just this one image shot of, like, you know, steak case in the background, whatever. The traditional kind of 50s household in probably America, really. Couldn't get any stock images for it, which really sucked. But so I did green screen. I did green screen everything, but still. Never filmed the part. I'll keep going. He goes in the kitchen. You hear a frying pan hit him, and she comes out with the frying pan in hand. I think it was a frying pan in hand or something like that. And he's dead. She's killed him. And she's like, yes, that was a tasty meal, and she leaves. Yeah, feminism. Poof. The second version of that is he still gets there, he goes into the kitchen, and she doesn't just kill him, she rips off his arm, she walks out, and she's a mutant. kind of zombie-like woman, same clothing and everything, and she says the same stuff. You got blood dripping from like his arm that's wrapped up in a business shirt, which was literally just like a bottle of water with a business shirt wrapped around it, and it was just pumping out water. And she walks out and she's like, "That was a tasty meal." And then she looks at the picture frame. Or originally she was meant to look at the picture frame of the girl from the earlier sequence, Jenny, and she just says, I wonder if my daughter's okay, or I wonder if Jenny's okay. I can't remember the line she ends up saying in the film, but it's meant to be like, I wonder if my daughter's okay. So connecting these people of like, oh, Jenny's the daughter of this woman that we're seeing here, of this couple. And then she walks away, and that's the end of her part. So being like this whole kind of also like sexism kind of commentary. None of it was filmed except for the parts with Faye. So we had her dressed up. I had her dressed up. She looked great. We had her do her whole scene. Then we had her done in makeup. I still have the original footage, all the green screen stuff. And I don't know if I'll ever actually release it. Like, it's not great stuff. It's good makeup. My friend Jordan had done the makeup for it and everything. I was very awkward at directing it. Very, very awkward. Again, my first time properly directing a film that wasn't Don't Stuff. Don't Stuff was fun because it was just a bunch of kids having fun, whatever. Whereas this one was properly directing adults, and it was nerve-wracking. Hurry up! Go away, Noah.
How long are you gonna film it for?
I don't fucking know. I'm almost done. Go away. Jesus Christ. So yeah, I still have that footage with the green screen stuff. I could probably just release it to YouTube and be like, hey, here it is. But it's also green screen footage, and I don't want it to be like, to be taken out of context and put with stuff. And like, I don't know if I'm still really allowed to release it, like 2-3 years after filming it. Like, it never got put into the film. I still have friends who know that it was filmed and have always wanted to see it, and I've just never released it, and it will probably never come out. I still have the footage. I still have a whole bunch of bloopers from this film. I've got all the footage from this film, and I've never released any of the bloopers. So again, I could also go ahead and edit all these blooper reels together, and yeah, but I just haven't done that. So yeah, I got a lot of like my friends and even my teacher was just like, there's just stuff that's just why, like, I shouldn't have made this kind of a film this early on. Like, I could have still filmed and written it and still filmed footage for it, but I should have done a completely different film for my final assignment. Definitely. I was not proud of this film when it came with the final product. Like, there's still stuff I like about it, and the concepts and some of the stuff I filmed and edited, pretty much everything with Jack except for this one scene, I love. But yeah, no, this film was pretty just not good. I still really like the script though, and I still have ideas I'd like to explore about it, but yeah, it's just... Yeah, I mean, even this particular scene, there's only the two of us in the room. There's Jack and me, and I'm meant to be the cameraman, so I'm also turning it whilst being like this far away and saying all the dialogue, and then like I realize that the cameraman is trying to expose me on film, and I'm like, hey, what are you doing? And the camera falls and breaks. And then you cut to back to the scientists. Yay. Scientists.
It's Fallout, isn't it?
Again, too quickly talked, spoken and stuff. So again, it's just this idea of like, this is what the world looks like when it's getting destroyed. They're meant to be in the future and stuff. It's really just kind of not great production design, I must admit. What the crap was that? It's the year 2106. What? Like, seriously, we talk too fast. And yeah, Skater Davis, end of the world or whatever. I had a different song. I actually had this film was actually kind of based on a lot of things, but it was also meant to have a Bob Dylan song, something about World War III, I can't remember. It was meant to have that song playing throughout the whole entire film, And it's literally about, because the song's about a guy who has a dream that's World War III, and there's no one there, but then there are some people and they're scared of him, and because they think he's communist and whatever. And he goes to his doctor, and his doctor says, "Hey, I had the same dream, but I didn't see you there." That's the joke. That's the end of the world.
Is it not better to listen to as the world ends?
And then you get the final siren, and they see a bomb, and they're like, "Oh, that's how you can tell how far away it is." And then they die. So even Jack doesn't give a shit, you know, like... like his shirt's untucked and everything. And then, you know, script by T.R. Teller and directed by T.R. Teller. So T.R. Teller stands for The Real Teller, like... And edited by the Real Education Districts, aka the Reds. Get it? Because they're communists. It's a joke. And then it actually cuts to the raw credits. Yeah. Makeup by Jordan Haynes. Makeup by Jordan Haynes, and she didn't even... Her stuff wasn't even shown in the film. Hey! She only did makeup on one character. The character doesn't even appear in the film. Then, of course, narrator / Jack. Obviously, Jack Richardson. Great job. Walt was played by John. Walt was, I think, Walter White inspired. Jeremy, because I like the name Jeremy. And Teller for the voice was also played by me. And a lot of royalty-free music, except for, of course, the Skeeter Davis song. And yeah, with thanks to my high school, and my friend Jordan who did the makeup, my dad, and the cast and crew. The crew was me. Yeah. And that was Nuclear Revolver. There is still so much that I could have done with that film, and I still have so much footage relating to that film, and I don't know, I still have the script, so I could end up actually filming those last parts, but I don't think I will. I was under the mindset that I'd create this whole universe through film, and that'd be really cool and whatever, but, like, even Don't Starve was meant to be related to it, because it's like, oh, like, Nuclear Revolver is the events before, you know, Don't Starve, because Don't Starve is after a nuclear apocalypse, and, oof, hiccup, and whatever. But yeah, they're student films made by a student, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, so, they're just films I made. Nuclear Revolver was probably my biggest disappointment, in terms of making a film that I went way too far into. Creating all this lore and stuff, and it was just a waste of time. I still like what I made. There are a lot of elements that could have been so much better, like if I wasn't the original actor. Like, John wasn't even originally cast, it was my mate Ryan, but he didn't want to be in the film at the end of it, which really sucked. He was in the production and everything, he'd been cast, and then he just wasn't able to do it because he had to focus on his own assignments and stuff. I'm like, alright, well, I'll just ask a different friend. So I got John, because John was in Are We Alive at the time, and yeah, or had been in Are We Alive as Raoul the Reasonable. Yeah, so thanks for watching another episode of With the Director. If you've enjoyed this, feel free to like, share, and subscribe for more. There are short films you can watch. There's more With the Director you can watch of other previous films I've done, or The Mindless Show, or there's a whole bunch of other stuff on this channel. Yeah, if you want to see more With the Director of me talking about other stuff, maybe an overview of Are We Alive or something, which I might do eventually, just talking about my older work, I might do it. I could. More content. No one will probably watch it, let's be realistic about it, but like at the same time. Yeah, so, thanks. This has been a long one, I know, but there's a lot about this film that was originally meant to be made, and didn't. Which really, really sucks. Bye.